6:25 a.m. I pour what's left of yesterday's coffee over some ice, adding some heavy cream. Spanish civilization has reached a point where not only can guys like me afford to have air conditioning installed in our houses, but we can also afford to use it on hot nights. Long story short, I'm waking up fresh as a daisy, rather than, like last summer, in a pool of sweat. Coffee in hand, I sit down on the living room rug to read. It's the 50th anniversary of Franco's death this year, and I'm preparing to write an article by reading Paul Preston's 1,000-page biography. So far, I'm on chapter 2, and I learned that Francisco Franco and his younger brother Ramon were both national heroes by 1926. Francisco, known to his family as Paquito to differentiate him from his older cousin Pacon, was famous for his heroism in the Spanish colonial war in Morocco and for being named the youngest general in Europe at age 33. Ramon was a famous aviator and completed in early 1926 a transatlantic flight in a winged boat that had the press comparing him to a modern-day Christopher Columbus. Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. It's been a while since I've done one of these day-in-the-life posts, but the news this week sucks, and I'm not feeling any particular urge to write about the top 10 rooftop bars or anything like that. So let's talk about samsara. Samsara is a Sanskrit word that refers to the universe, but also to the cycle of birth and rebirth. It could be the cycle of aimless drifting, wandering, or mundane existence. When Buddhists attempt to reach nirvana, they're escaping from suffering and the cycle of reincarnation in samsara. Sanskrit is notoriously difficult to translate. Let's just say that samsara is life. It's the stuff that's happening while your mind clings to its identification with experience. In my case, life and stuff starts pretty early in the morning. So let's talk about a day in the life. 7:20. My wife Morena is starting to show signs of life in the bedroom. I stand out in the sun on the balcony. The two orange cats on the roof of the garage downstairs squint up at me, knowing I'm not the one who throws them food in the mornings. That's our next door neighbor. 7:50. Morena's up with some sort of white cream all over her face and making chai. This is a process she brought from India, which involves boiling ginger, milk, and spices while your husband becomes more and more agitated at the inefficiency of your morning routine and finally decides to go out. 8:05 a.m. Morena's chai is still a work in progress. I'm dressed and heading down the stairs. I sit in the sun a couple of blocks from the house, not wanting to walk around the neighborhood with a book about Franco in my hand. I've picked up Same as Ever by Morgan Housel. The essay Expectations and Reality has a quote from Charlie Munger that really gets my attention. The world isn't driven by greed, it's driven by envy. People are incapable, says Housel, of keeping track of how well we're all doing compared to previous generations. But we're perfectly capable of resenting people nearby who seem to have more. So in the end, everybody has a better life, but a lot of people feel poorer because of social comparison. Makes sense. And it also explains, for example, why people will still complain about gentrification when almost everyone in Spain is living incredibly rich lives by the standards of someone in the 1970s. There's an online version of the Morgan Housel essay, Expectations and Reality, but it's not nearly as good as the version in the book. Just buy the book Same as Ever, or, if you prefer, check out his mega bestseller, The Psychology of Money. 9:15 a.m. Morena's out, we walk down to her office. This is a family tradition of sorts and prevents me from spending all morning looking at my laptop with a rounded spine. It's about a 20-minute walk door to door. We get coffee at a place called Caffeine on Carrer de Bilbao, and she goes up to start her workday. 9:40 a.m. I'm drinking my coffee from a paper cup and on my way to get some ground beef. The butcher I go to in the Mercado de Clot is closed on Mondays, but the supermarket is right here, I get a kilo of ternera picada and carry it home in a paper bag, holding it in the crook of my arm like a football. 10:10 a.m. I'm home and ready to start work, almost. Honestly, I'm sort of avoiding work. Instead, I'm making a 4-egg breakfast and chopping some onion for the ground beef for later. I saute the onion with a few cloves of garlic, then add the beef and some spices. At the end, I throw in a few cubes of frozen spinach and sit down to eat my eggs. 10:15 a.m. Briefly checking the news here. Last week there was a new corruption scandal in the government that will probably amount to nothing, and I'm not going to waste a whole day looking into the details. Today, there's a survey saying that more than 25% of people in Spain don't think any of the party leaders would make a particularly good prime minister. 24% approve of the current prime minister, Pedro Sanchez, and another significant percentage just don't know who should be running things. That mostly sums up my feelings. 10:27 a.m. I'm on the sofa with my laptop doing some search engine optimization. Being a human with a website that gives information may be quaintly out of fashion by next Friday, with how fast AI is changing. Why get the answer to your question from someone who knows things when you can get a computer at a data center to generate a plausible sounding string of words instead? I should probably start looking into new career options. 12:10 p.m. Just a side note here, I didn't actually write AM and PM on the blog post for this podcast, so it seems a little bit strange to me to say 12:10 p.m., because in Spain, 12 is still the morning. But in my country, 12 is the afternoon, it's PM. In writing, I use the 24-hour clock, and I never say AM or PM for the most part, but it would seem a bit ridiculous to say 17:36 when I could say 5:36 p.m., so here we are. As I was saying, 12:10 p.m. I'm posting on LinkedIn for some reason. I've successfully gotten off Twitter and I'm spending much less time on the other social networks. It's totally worth it, but still, I'm posting on LinkedIn for some reason. 12:23 p.m. I'm dressed again and heading to the gym. It's 2 metro stops away. On the train, I'm listening to the song Meth Lab Zoso Sticker by 7 Horse. That's 7 Horse, the number 7, and the word horse altogether as one word, 7 Horse. And the song is called Meth Lab Zoso Sticker. In my brief attempt to get a university education back in the early part of this century, I took a literature course in which we read James Joyce's Ulysses. The professor suggested that when Leopold Bloom has forgotten his house key and spends the day wandering around Dublin keyless, the key represents his penis. It's called symbolism, and it's quite sophisticated. This sort of knowledge has served me well in life. Today, I can affirm that Meth Lab Zoso Sticker also makes several symbolic allusions to the singer's penis. Dope drum part, though. 12:51 p.m. I'm at the gym early because some of the sweaty old guys have invited me to roll with them during open mat. We practice crushing each other in various positions while the other person tries to escape. Then we switch. After a while, I'm red-faced and looking a lot like a sweaty old guy myself. The regular teacher shows up at 2 and gives a full jiu-jitsu lesson, so I practice elaborate techniques with a guy named David, then fight a few people. Nobody I have a chance of beating has come out today, so I lose a few fights, but the guys congratulate me on my progress. 3:27 p.m. I'm showered and out of the gym. Still sweating, though. My heart rate is around 120. Did I really just spend 2.5 hours at the gym? I guess I did. Oh well, I didn't choose the bro life. The bro life chose me. It's breezy outside, which is a relief, and I've got an email from my lawyer. We're appealing my case for Spanish nationality, which was rejected a few months ago. The lawyer wants to know if I'm happy to wait for a result or if I'd like to take them to court. Suing the government sounds kind of fun, actually. Still, I tell him that for now I'm fine with waiting. I eat a bit of ground beef and rice out of a tupper while sitting on a bench. Then get a coffee to go, walking down Carrera de Peracuart past Glorias. 4:30 p.m. Out in Poblano, there's a Tibetan Buddhist center called Nagarjuna that I've started going to a couple of times a week. On Mondays, the meditation is led by a woman who's all business. She sits down, looks at the clock, and gets right into it. We count 3 cycles of 21 breaths, then go into a meditation on fear. Since I stopped drinking a couple of years ago, my brain just wants to do spiritual things. Halfway through the meditation, I realize that if I am pure awareness, I'm not actually affected by the things I'm afraid of. Because awareness can't gain or lose anything. It's just the space where things happen. The mind is a thing that happens in awareness, and so is the body. So is that feeling of fear. So is the whole illusion, which is this limited human identity. It's just a series of sensations and repetitive thought loops. I won't bore you with the details, but it's transcendent. 5:45 p.m. Anyway, back to being a middle-aged gym bro. Morena is finished up at the office as I'm leaving the Buddhist center, so I wait for her and we walk home. She's on her way to the osteopath to get her back readjusted from sitting at a desk all day. 6:25 p.m. I sit on the sofa back at home doing more SEO. With around 1,500 articles that I've written over the years, this is a lot of work. Some of what I've published is pretty bad, but that was my hustle, and I've been doing it for a long time. Around 15 years, I guess. 6:55 p.m. God, I'm bored. Back to Franco. Franco's father, Nicolas, was something of a leftist and a bohemian. Young Francisco rebelled through strict self-discipline and pious Catholicism, eventually becoming El Caudillo. His younger brother went the other way. In 1930, Ramon Franco was apparently seconds away from bombing the Royal Palace in Madrid in an attempt to start a revolution against the monarchy. At the last moment, he decided against dropping his bombs and dropped some leaflets calling for a general strike instead. In 1931, the king was forced into exile anyway, and the rest is Spanish Civil War history. 7:08. Oh crap, the laundry. I stuff my sweaty jiu-jitsu clothes and half the laundry hamper into the washer, add one of those little detergent pods, and turn some knobs. Washing machines, once a luxury, now a necessity. That's another point that Morgan Housel makes a lot. 7:30 p.m. I finished chapter 2 of Franco, and it's still broad daylight. The wind is flapping the shutters, which are partially broken. We should probably get those replaced. Home ownership is a never-ending expense. Just like renting, I guess. But if the place is yours, you're more likely to fix things when they break. Morena gets home from the osteopath, talking about how the elevator is making strange noises. 7:55 p.m., we have an early dinner, more ground beef and more eggs, Greek yogurt for dessert. I don't think we eat better than kings in the old days, but we certainly eat better than 99% of the people in history. 8:32 p.m. By now, you've surely heard that it's best to take a walk after meals to lower your insulin. I suggest as much to Morena, and she agrees. We're walking around the corner, and one of the local ocupas comes out of his improvised living space behind a steel gate. I'm looking at the filth and clutter inside the place, but Morena says, "Did you see his hand? It's covered in blood." He strides off, presumably to get medical advice from his friends sitting outside the bar. There's a lot of local color on our street. The people seem mostly harmless, but Beverly Hills it is not. We walk out to look at the progress of the new park they're putting in next to the Calatrava Bridge, a bridge which was installed in preparation for the '92 Olympics. Gentrification. It didn't start yesterday. There are now a few skeleton trees planted in the dirt around the future park. At some point, they may bloom into living acacias. 8:56 p.m. Back home, I drink water, then more water. Oops, I've forgotten about the laundry. Morena sighs, then goes out to the balcony to hang it. Marriage is a lot of laundry. Or maybe it's just life that's a lot of laundry. death, taxes, and laundry. That's samsara. 9:54 p.m. In Chapter 3 of Paul Preston's book, Francisco Franco is begrudgingly defending the Second Republic. As a soldier and as a man, he's doing his duty to the social order, even though he may disagree with parts of that order. It's 1931, and by 1936, he will have decided that his duty to the social order lies in overthrowing the Republic. We all know how that went. Ramon Franco apparently ended up fighting on the national right-wing side during the Civil War. This is despite his trying to start a leftist revolution a few years earlier. He died in an air accident in 1938. His straight-laced older brother became dictator and survived until 1975. That'll be a story for another article. For now, it's time for bed. Mañana más. That's about all I've got for today. I talked about expectations versus reality in a recent episode called Is Spain Overrated? That's episode 106, and it talks about the fact that people's expectations for international travel have significantly increased with social media, etc. And maybe international travel is not quite living up to the high expectations that people have. Of course, it depends on who you are and what your expectations are to begin with. You can check that out in any case. That is episode 106, or go by the blog expatmadrid.com and read. It's called Is Spain Overrated? I've talked about the Civil War on here. I've got George Orwell and Peter Kemp, two separate episodes. Orwell is episode 37, and Peter Kemp, who is kind of the right-wing George Orwell, is episode 38. You can hear about that. Charlie Munger was quoted further in the article Expectations and Reality, saying, "The first rule of a happy life is low expectations. If you have unrealistic expectations, you're going to be miserable your whole life. You want to have reasonable expectations and take life's results with a certain amount of stoicism." I fully agree with that. I've talked about self-discipline and stoicism on here before. My article on turning 40 was kind of the Stoic Virtues article. That's episode 29. Can you believe it? I've been doing this a long time. And I guess I was making about 4 episodes a year for the first couple of years that I had this podcast. So now I do it approximately every week. Stoicism is episode 29. After that, the discipline episode is episode 93, sort of a follow-up to episode 29. There's a lot of stuff on here. Like and subscribe if you can. Subscribe to the podcast, like the episode, like the video, whatever. Head over to YouTube, Learn Spanish with Daniel. I've got some new stuff up there. Last week I talked about the verb comer and its past tense form. So I talked about how to say I ate pizza yesterday, they ate paella last night, etc. The past is a big topic in Spanish, so I will have to talk more about it in a future video, but I gotta start somewhere, so that's last week's video. Learn Spanish with Daniel will get you there. Just put that into YouTube and you will find me. Or you could go directly to youtube.com/learn Spanish with Daniel, all one word. That'll probably get you there too. I've got a few recommendations if you're coming to Spain anytime soon. I have friends who are doing big things. You could check out Walks Tours. Go to expatmadrid.com/walks. Walks Tours has a few tours of things like the Prado Museum early in the morning before anyone else is in there. Up here in Barcelona, I think they do Sagrada Familia as well. Check it out, expatmadrid.com/walks. That's an affiliate link, so I may get a small commission if you sign up for something. On a similar note, we have Devour Tours, which does food tours. That was started by my friend Lauren back in the day. expatmadrid.com/devour will get you there. They have food tours in Spain, in Italy, in the US, in several other places around Europe, I believe. I've done the one in Madrid. It's a lot of fun. That's expatmadrid.com/devour, DEVOUR. You can see all of their different tours. There is also, of course, biketourinSpain.com. I've done a couple of their bike tours, the Route of Don Quixote and also the bike tour in Extremadura. They're both very good, well organized, not too difficult. Extremadura was a bit more difficult than the Route of Don Quixote. Either way, go to biketourinSpain.com. They have a few different tours in different parts of Spain, but they're fully organized. They give you a bike. They have booked hotels and hostels for you along the way. Raul over there will give you all the information you need to have an exciting bike tour. I highly recommend it. biketourinspain.com. That is not an affiliate link, but tell Raul over there that I said hi and he will appreciate getting some business from me. You could donate to this project. Did I forget to mention this until now? Why, yes, I did. You could donate to this project, expatmadrid.com/donate. Anything from €3 on up to however much you want. Like I said, I'm living a life of luxury here. I own an air conditioning unit, but the electricity to run it is not cheap. So, expatmadrid.com/donate. I appreciate whatever you can send my way while you are there. Write me a message. Tell me about something you'd like to hear on the podcast. I may be able to work with it. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day. I'm going to go off and be a gym bro elsewhere. I will talk to y'all soon. From the beautiful city of Barcelona, hasta la próxima. Bye.